When Mark met that seller at the property, it was game over. He was getting the deal.
But I want people to know when they see my phone number come up on their phone, there's money there. How can we turn a 5K deal into 15? How do we turn a 15 into a 30?
I'm excited because Mark's going to join me and we're going to do a deal breakdown, right, Mark?
Sure thing. Excited for it.
And just to give some context here, Mark is in Tulsa. We run a direct to seller operation there. And what's awesome is we could do an appointment model, which I've talked about quite a bit. So Mark will go meet sellers at the kitchen table. And what number contract are we on for the year, Mark? 50 or 51?
I signed 53 this morning. It's that one I put in the group text.
Okay. Yeah. So 53 deals so far for the year, about halfway through the year. So just having an awesome year. So fun to see you growing the business, Mark. And what's cool, guys, is Mark runs a very low overhead operation. So he, spends money to get really good, high quality leads. He goes on appointments and then he closes these deals. So we are working on, scaling and expanding, but I think, Mark, maybe the first thing I just wanted to mention was a lot of people misunderstand that you have to have a big team to run a high profitable, high volume wholesale operation. And you really don't. I mean, at some point you're going to run out of bandwidth and we're hitting those growing pains, but you can transact quite a bit with just as a solo operator or a small team. And we really believe strongly in like bust at the seams, work out of out of the garage, kind of keep your costs down low until you absolutely have to take on more cost, more overhead. And I think a lot of people, they just grow too fast, or they have these misunderstandings that you have to have like all this team and all this overhead to do this business at a high level, and you don't. So it's pretty exciting.
And frankly, a lot of it, I didn't realize the potential for it, but a lot of the guys, especially at Joe and Training HQ, they've really been working with us on things like stretching revenue, because the cost per contract is the same. How can you make each contract more profitable? What are small things you can do? What is the next 10% of persistence that you can put into it so that you can stretch that revenue? Because you're doing the same amount of work for that contract regardless. How can we turn a 5K deal into 15? How do you turn a 15 into a 30? Just small things. And you and I have been exploring some fun options for things like that. We're about to turn it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. So Mark and I also, I forgot to mention, own a Joe Homebuyer franchise. It's been, I think, really awesome for us. And, if you guys want to know more about that, reach out to us and we can share some more about that. But Mark, let's break down a deal. I know you've got, 50 to choose from, but what's a really awesome deal that you think would be high impact for the group and for everybody listening?
Yeah, so we toy around with quite a bit of PPL leads. It's kind of all the rage, and some providers are better than others. We've used almost all of them, right? And one we have been finding really good success with naturally is PropertyLeads, and some of them will come in and they'll be a retail seller, maybe they have an agent already. And a lot of people will get that and they'll walk away, they'll be like, oh, they have an agent. I just paid 250 or 350 bucks for this lead that had an agent. I'm still calling that lead, and that paid off. Like I said, we're looking for things, small needle movers, like 1 to 10% worth of effort we can put into something to see how much extra revenue that generates. So this lead comes in, right? I pull it up immediately on my phone and I treat them like they're PPC leads. I'm on the phone with them. I'm blowing them up within 30 seconds of that thing being in my email. So this lead comes in, I pull up the address and I hit call to call them. And as soon as it's ringing, I see on my phone, oh crap, this thing is listed on the MLS. What am I supposed to do with this? Am I going to get in trouble? Is their agent going to find out they're talking to someone else? Whatever. I decided, hey, you're already here. Make that phone call anyways. You paid for the lead. Might as well find out what's going on. So what I do next, I always triple call. Every time I get a lead like that, I call. They're going to ignore the first call because they don't know the number. They're going to think it's spam. When they get a second call from the same number, they get curious. If they get three, they're like, okay, this isn't spam. I've never been triple dialed by a spam call. Let's answer it. So that's what I did. The lady answered. I think she answered on the first call, which also indicates to me like, hey, she's filling this out right now. She answered right now, and I called her this fast. This is good because she's not going to fill out another form for another website going to somebody else. So that's why we treat the lead so valuably. So it turns out her story is one, it was her mom's house and she inherited it about a year ago. Probate is done. So she's ready to sell. She's the executor over the estate. Two, she lives an hour and a half away from this house. So all summer, Jerry, it is 116 degrees in Oklahoma today. 116 degrees today. You think they want to come and cut that grass twice a week from an hour and a half away? They want
Why
nothing
didn't
to
she
do.
hire someone to go cut the grass? Jeez.
They couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But they could afford, and I can't infer why. Some people just don't want people at their mom's house, and that's why she's tired of the agent. So they had it listed. They had it listed at about 375 by the time I got on the phone with them. They opened up at 425 on the MLS. So 425,000. This is the best part of town in Tulsa. This is Midtown Tulsa. This is the place where all the lawyers are buying, a 1,500 square foot house for 500,000. I mean, in Tulsa, that's big money. So I see the location. I love it. I'm used to dealing in a lot of war zones in rural areas. So when I get a good one in a good spot, I'm like, I'm going to jump on it. So that's what I'm saying. Not only that, they're tired of their agent because they've been under contract two times. Both of them have fallen out. The first time they were under contract with an older buyer, he was going to pay cash at 425, and then he canceled before closing because it was a two-story and he didn't want to have to go upstairs to get to his other bedrooms. The second one was a wholesaler that locked them up at like 375. Now, you're not going to make like that's the ARV, frankly. If
Mhm.
my 2 cents, that was the ARV. So I come in, it's just timing. I was persistent. I called, even though she was listed. That other agent that they were listed with had just gotten off the phone with her and told her the contract is canceling. They had been listed for 5 months, and she just they went under contract twice. The second one canceled. She was done. So
Now,
timing
did you
worked out
remove
right.
the agent from the picture or keep the agent in the picture?
She got off the phone with me and she called the agent and requested a cancellation.
Mm.
So that's why I made the phone call. And she's like, listen, whether I'm going with you or not, I'm canceling my agent. And I was like, this is right. There's blood in the water here. Let's go after
Now,
this.
guys, if
So
that happens where you call a seller and it's listed, which you'll know instantly because I Google, every address instantly and you'll see if it's listed. If it's listed, you got to make sure you say to that seller, look, you're currently listed right now. I have to work with your agent unless you're able to terminate your listing agreement. And a lot of times they are, otherwise they wouldn't be filling out a form and contacting, you because they're so fed up with their agent. I have had it where they're like, no, I'm happy with my agent. I'm just also looking for a buyer, or maybe not happy with their agent, but they don't understand quite the commitment they made. You
yeah,
cannot
but
go
you don't
around an
know that,
agent.
do you, Jerry? That's why you're calling because you don't know where they're at with this.
Right. Yeah, you don't know. So I do that too. Like honestly, Mark, when we get the lead from any of the PPL providers, if it says listed with an agent, those are often cheaper or people pass those up. I call those. Call those. You don't know their arrangement. I just did some calls yesterday and it was like, oh, the agent's my buddy. They don't care. They're doing me a favor. They're happy to like let me sell it out without them. So you just don't know, but have the conversation and find out.
Yeah, yeah. So we did that and we chatted for a long time. This was a very emotional situation for her because it was her mom's house and she felt a little sad letting it go, but they just couldn't keep it up anymore. And it was really, when I say this needed no work, Jerry, it needed no work. Like it was perfect. When I was marketing it to my buyers, I already had perfectly taken pictures by the photographer that I just saved off the web, off Zillow. And the house didn't really need anything. The problem was they were listed too high,
Too high.
and
Yeah.
they're listed too high, which we're kind of going through what we're referring to as seller acceptance. Sellers are starting to realize the market isn't what they thought it was, and it was a timing thing. Those were the two things: listed too high and timing, and that's what you see so often on these MLS deals, right? they're listed too high and everybody looks at it at first glance, nobody's calling. Well, I called.
Mhm.
How many other people might have got a PPL lead on that lead that saw it's listed and saw what it was listed at and didn't call? You
Yep.
know, maybe four people got that lead, none of them called, I got the deal. So we scheduled an appointment. I talked to her. I will address the elephant in the room. I asked them, what's the price for this to be a situation you feel good about working with? I get them to tell me that. And I spend no time arguing about that with them whatsoever. You remember, Jerry, when we were at Fast
Yeah.
Track and you essentially closed that one. They gave you price and you put it on mute and said, where do you want to be at? And I said, doesn't matter. I'm going on
Mhm.
the appointment. I'm going to show up and it doesn't matter what they tell you on the phone, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's so true because price is often a deceiver. And what that means is I mean, think about it. If you were in their shoes and you've got a cash buyer on the other line asking you for price, I would start out high, just like we anchor low. They do the pie in the sky number. And so if you put a lot of credit on that number they throw out there, you're going to be like, oh, it's not a deal, waste of time, retail. I'm not going on appointment, or I'm not going to make the offer. And I have a rule where it's just like never discriminate based on price. Like just pretend like it's not even their real number. And that's on market, off market, anything. Like never. What you want to do is find out what else is going on, because if you can identify other pillars of motivation, then that'll let you know that's probably not their number because they got these other things going on, right? Otherwise, they would go on market, they'd wait longer, they would fix it up, they would do other things if they really did actually want that price. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree, Mark. So then their pie in the sky number, you just kind of brushed it off and then went on appointment. Is that what you did?
Yeah, I said, okay, great. I'd love to get you every dime as close to that as I can. What's your schedule the next couple of days? When can we meet up? And keep in mind, this lead came in at like 8:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are out of the office, other people aren't calling. I see a phone number come up or I see a lead come up. I'm like, is this a $20,000 email sitting in my inbox that I have to handle? And I take them. I'm going to take that. And I
By the
try
way,
to do
Mark,
those things.
that's one of the hack strategies with property leads is a lot of the big outfits spending money. They're a 9 to 5. So they turn their campaigns off after 5 because their salespeople, have have lives and stuff. If you can turn those campaigns on, from 6 to midnight or 5 to midnight and be willing to take that 8:30 p.m. call, you're gonna have such a competitive advantage because again, everybody else has their campaigns turned off then because they don't want to get a lead at 8 o'clock and then not be able to call it till 9 o'clock the next morning. You might waste your money because Mark calls it, right? So that's a huge window of opportunity when you're in those early scrappy stages where you just got to work those leads at any time of the day.
Yeah, and the thing is, almost every time I wait till the next morning to call, I never get a hold of them
Mm-hmm.
because they're on their phone right now. They just got hit with a YouTube ad from a PPL company. I'm like, okay, they're sitting there right now. This is something front of mind to them. There's urgency right now for this reason. And I also phrase it like this: I want to respect that. If they are reaching out and they have a situation that they need addressed, for me to be respectful of their situation, I don't want to leave them waiting. And that's another way I kind of psychologically view it. So we set that appointment. We go out there. They're cutting the grass, ironically, right? Like I said, that they were tired of driving an hour and a half to cut the grass. And we just walk through the house. I show up on my appointments and I tell them the same thing every time. Like, we'll get to the house. Let's sit down and talk. We'll see if we'll be a good fit to work together. You can tell me your situation. I'll see what I can do to fill the holes. So we go through the appointment, we go through the discovery. Luckily, my discovery process on the phone was really tight with this one. So I knew pretty much I just had to show up and close it at this point. And we did. I was on appointment probably an hour long, including the signing, you know. So I go through the process. I give them my price. She says, hang on a minute. She goes to the backyard to talk to her husband who's mowing the grass, comes back in and says, okay. Now,
And
remember,
what'd you anchor at?
I
Like what was
anchored in the low twos.
so low
Remember, they're
twos?
listed at 425 is where they started with this listing.
425, you anchor in the low twos. Just like that.
Just like that.
I
You
mean,
know, I
that's
do that. I tell them, this would be a perfect world situation for me.
mhm.
And by this time, they had lowered the price a couple times. Maybe they're at 375 or something.
Yeah.
But they're like, if this was going to sell in the last 120 days, it would have done it by now. And they're at that point of acceptance. And the house was free and clear. So for them, they can't afford to pay somebody to come cut it. They're thinking, ooh, I'm 2 weeks away from 200 grand.
That's the,
They
yeah.
get it. There's
So
urgency.
when you low anchor, did they counter or is that when she just took your number?
No, they said they really wish they could get it there, but they couldn't get it quite there. So then I went through the classic, okay,
Okay.
that'd be a perfect world situation for me. What is like how close, how reasonably close are we? Like, are we close enough to where it's worth us pushing through a little further and trying to put something together today? And it was. She came down to like, I don't know, we'll say 265. And I said, I really appreciate that. Like it means a lot to me. We're getting really close. And
Mm-hmm.
frankly, it may have been a deal at that point in time, but I don't know that. I
Yeah.
don't know if my buyers are going to think something different. Maybe they don't like the layout. I think it's great, but I'm not the guy that's doing Airbnbs in Midtown Tulsa. They're the
Yeah.
ones that are doing it. So I'm always going to try to push it a little lower just in case because I don't want to have to cancel that contract. And we ended up settling on it 250. We signed. No title issues. They already had the probate and everything taken care of, and we just pushed it right through. The first three buyers I went out there all offered like my ask price on it, so I got them to bid up on it. And I didn't publicly market this one because the agent had just released the listing the day before, and I
Mm.
didn't. I'm friends with 3,000 people in Tulsa, and I don't want people to think I cut them out of a deal or anything. So I sent that to the people that I knew that bought there privately through various softwares like Investor Base or personal contacts, and all three of them
So
wanted it.
you
I
didn't
just said
put this on the public groups like because you normally
no.
get a lot of traction that way. Okay. Because of
Yeah,
the
like
agent
I posted in the
situation.
last few days 3 deals that way, and I'm inundated with people blowing me up to buy them.
Yeah.
This one, because it had just come off the market, and even though they released the listing for 3 days, it still stayed up on Zillow and Redfin, and I don't want that. I don't
Yeah.
want that agent to try to snag them back in and try to catch her 6% commission off of what would be my assignment.
Right.
So yeah,
So between those private sellers you knew from being active in the market, you are well known in Tulsa now as a market expert is what I like to call it, meaning you have a lot of credibility, you play the game right, you're transparent, you don't fluff numbers and stuff. So buyers have a lot of respect for you. So and that's part of the playing the long game in a market, guys. Like don't inflate your numbers just to make it look good. You'll lose credibility and then people will stop taking you seriously. They'll stop answering your texts, opening your emails. With Mark, when he says these are the numbers and this is a deal, everybody stops what they're doing and looks at it because he's proven that to be true. So a couple of private sellers you knew that like that area, they all wanted it. Two or three of those guys wanted it.
100% of them wanted it, and I was just
Yeah.
like, I guess it depends how much. And then the first one, so I have it at 250, right? In here I agreed to pay their property tax for the last 2 years because when her mom died, she hasn't been paying them. She didn't have any money. So contract price is 255, probably more like 255 when you account for that. So all my buyers, the first one is like, hey, 265 right now today. Like, come on, it's fine. You make good money on this. And I say, no, highest and best. We'll see. And then the people end up buying it for more than him, and he comes back later and he's like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
this is
I will
that's
pay more
a
for that."
yeah, that's a Joe Homebuyer culture thing there. Like one thing that you'll see a lot of wholesalers do is they'll play against each other, play the buyers against each other. In other words, you'll tell one, hey, if you can come up to 260, I'll give it to you. And then go back to the other one and say, hey, the other guy's at 260. Can you come up to 262? Play them against each other. And what that does though is you're playing favorites, and then everybody's feeling like if you're willing to play them, what else are you willing to compromise, right? And so rather the approach is, look, you got to come in with your highest and best offer. There is other interest. It is probably going to go over the ask price of 250, but you need to come in with your highest offer you can, and I'm going to decide based on which is the best offer. And don't play those favorites or give preferential treatment or throw a bone to this guy or that guy. Like you have to set the precedence for how you operate as a wholesaler. And that is the best way to do it, because now you're honestly going to draw out the highest paying buyer, because they're not going to want to get beat out. If they really want it, they're going to come up to their max number rather than try to play you on a little bit more type of thing.
Yeah, and another thing on it too, and it's not to say I'm never wrong, because I cancel a certain percent like anybody should. I cancel probably, I have an 80% close rate on contracts I take,
Yeah.
which is pretty good for industry standard. And it's not to say I'm never wrong, but I want people to know when they see my phone number come up on their phone, there's money there. And I want them to know the best thing is the reputation that you're bringing deals, and people are going to make money off of these.
Yeah. And so where did the highest buyer come in?
I ended up selling at like 275. So by the time I paid taxes for her, we made almost 20 grand on it.
Yeah.
On a phone call to a lead that was listed on the MLS.
Yeah. And do you remember by chance what that lead cost?
$225.
Okay. Yeah. So guys, let's talk about this for a second, because this lead came through a marketing channel called PPL, pay per lead. And these are agency companies that do the marketing. They get the lead, you buy the lead, and you call the phone number. So it eliminates all of that preliminary marketing work. Now, this isn't the only marketing channel we do. Mark actually does really, really good. We do PPC in Tulsa, which is Google advertising. And we work directly with an agency that we're really happy with. But on the PPL side, that provider was PropertyLeads. And I put in the chat here, they're offering a discount. If you go to that link there, they're giving, my followers and students a $250 credit when you sign up with them. So that's awesome.
What we paid for this lead too.
What's that?
That was one. That's what we paid for this lead.
Right. That could be your next deal. Yeah. Now, when I talk to PropertyLeads, what they recommend, and I had a video go out today as of this recording we're doing now, where what James over at PropertyLeads recommends is, if you're getting started into the PPL world and you've got a fairly dialed in process, like, you know how to talk to sellers, you know how to make low offer, you know how to transact, then he recommends a minimum of a $1,500 monthly budget. And where he comes to that number is, on average, now this is going to go up and down based on your market, but he says on average, you're going to pay about $150 per lead. Again, that depends on when you run your campaigns, what market you're in. And then he says you should be able to close a deal in about 15 leads, which we find fairly consistent. And the more exit strategies you have and the better you know your market, you can get that down to about 10. And so like Mark and I in Tulsa, we try to be around that 10. I think we even get under that, like 8, 1 in 8, maybe at least with PPC and probably with some of our PPL. But if you can close 1 in 15 or 1 in 20, so then if you're spending $1,500 to get 15 leads and you can close one of those for 20 grand, that was an awesome ad spend and return on investment, right? Now, you may not get it in the 15, it may take you 20 or whatever. So there's a variable in all of this, and that's the market, clearly, and you're the biggest variable. Like, Mark calls those leads within 20 seconds of the form coming in. He does not wait, because the way that these providers work is they make the seller fill out step 1, and step 1 is name and phone number. They click next, and then they're going to some more information to fill out. And when they hit next, that lead automatically comes into Mark. And I did this with you, Mark, when you came out. We called while they were still filling out step 2 on the form. We're calling. And what that does is it gives you that tiny window of time to call the seller before they finish filling out your form and fill out somebody else's form, right? And that's why if you wait till the next day, more than likely they kept, because there's high urgency right now. So they're on the internet filling out stuff. They don't even remember what they fill out half the time. They're just like Googling and doing all this stuff. So that's why it's so important that you call it right away. So anyway, guys, if you want to get started with PropertyLeads, check that out there. And we have, Jordan was telling me we have another student here, Mark, that signed up with PropertyLeads, did a deal. I think on their very first lead they called, they turned it into a wholesale deal. The very first one. Yeah. So that's not normal, guys. Don't come in with that expectation that you close the very first one you call. But
It
like,
happens though. It happens. And a
yeah,
lot of this, I'll disagree with you on one thing. You said it depends on if you're how many you're going to get closed on the market. I don't think that's true. I think it depends on the person and the level of effort and belief they're willing to put into it.
yeah,
Because I'll bet you could drop me in Orange County, California, and I could go get contracts.
yeah. Well, especially if you're going to go meet the seller.
Yeah.
Because think about it, guys. When Mark met that seller at the property, it was game over. He was getting the deal. I already know he's walking out of there with the deal because he's meeting that seller face to face. He's able to appease their concerns, overcome their objections, shake their hand, look them in the eye, tell them he's local, tell them he can solve this problem for them. Give them that assurance. Sellers want peace of mind. They want confidence that you can perform more than anything else, more than price. So a virtual wholesaler on the phone, you can close deals on the phone. I'm not saying that. We do all the time, but you will not beat Mark Gabryel if you're on the phone and he meets them in person. You will not beat him. He will beat you every time. Right?
Sorry, guys.
So 2 things: stay out of Tulsa because Mark's going to kill you there. No. But yeah, it's true. I mean, it really is true because Mark, you're really good at that interaction with people. And you know how to identify a deal and get a good deal. So that's part of the game here. So anyway, there's a belief out there that PPL as a marketing channel is sort of like expert level. And there's some truth to that, right? Because you're spending money. So in the beginning, a lot of us, don't have much of a marketing budget, if none at all. So then you got to focus on like the free and really low cost methods. But if you can find a way to get $1,500 to do PPL, and that can get you that deal, you might want to explore that even early on in the game.
Yeah, and Jerry, what separates the expert level people from the people that are not consistently doing deals? To me, it's very simple. This business relies on a few revenue generating tasks, and the people that we consider to be expert level are the ones that are just consistently doing those things. They're no different from me, from you, from anybody on this call. The people that will look and be like, well, they're an expert. Well, that expert is just willing to consistently do the things that other people aren't willing to do, and that's what separates them.
And what are those things? The things are generate high quality leads and have high quality conversations every single day. You do that every day, and you have 5 to 10 high quality conversations every day. You are a 6 and 7 figure earner in this business. You got to get those leads and you got to have those conversations, and you are and be consistent. That's Mark. Mark gets up, he does the work, he gets the deals. That simple. I actually know him really well. He's not that smart a guy. He really isn't. But he's highly successful.
College. I was homeschooled in high school. I didn't go to college.
I'm just kidding, Mark. Okay. So $20K deal. Awesome. Way to go, Mark.